Hello, I am C3PO, and I believe the storyteller is ready, so let us begin.
This week, the story is about our first look at a beloved character not seen in many, many years. Obi-Wan Kenobi is probably the most iconic Star Wars character to not have appeared in live action since Disney's takeover. But now he's back, baby. In the teaser trailer for Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney Plus, which came today at long last. Ross, this started with some stills that came out this morning, and you texted me predicting that we'd get a little bit more footage. Does this trailer meet expectations, exceed expectations? Is it disappointing for anyone? What's the rub?
The only disappointment that I had is the only thing that I'm seeing consistently as the only disappointment people had, but it's not something that really matters that much. And overall, the excitement is at an all-time high because everybody, casual to insanely hardcore, is probably the most excited about this compared to maybe anything else.
Yeah,
and it looks awesome.
We're going to talk about it in painstaking detail here, and I would say that it really exceeded expectations. And maybe that's just because I have a different definition for what a teaser trailer ought to be. Although I don't necessarily think that it overexposed or gave anything away. And so in that sense, I thought it was a pretty well made trailer. But why don't we get it out of the way? What was displeasing to you?
So this is something that you wouldn't have a context point for. Well, actually, no, you would. You would have a context for it. So
the Inquisitor, are you mad about the Inquisitor?
Yeah, the Grand Inquisitor. Do you know why I'm mad?
People say his head looks weird.
Yes, it does. Because do you remember in Revenge of the Sith, when Obi-Wan goes to Utapau and he's greeted by the port administrator, the Powan, with the tall head and the sharp black teeth?
Okay.
Well, that's a Powan. That's what they look like. And the Grand Inquisitor is a Powan. And so his depiction in Rebels, because he's the main villain in the first season of Rebels, is Powan-like. His head is much taller than a normal person's head, and his teeth are sharp, and he just looks much more evil. Whereas Rupert Friend just looks like he's wearing a skin cap. And Rupert Friend seemed like great casting, but it seems like they went all out to make Cad Bane work, and they kind of half-assed the Grand Inquisitor. Everything else, though, like literally, this is the only complaint, and it's just that his head looks schmooshed. I saw someone comment saying that they saw the image originally stretched as like a thumbnail, like that was just squished into a square, and they were like, "Oh, the head, it looks great." And then they saw it in actuality because his head is really tall and narrow and thin, whereas it is just a normal human head in a skin cap. And his teeth also look normal. Now that might have just been the lighting, but his teeth look normal, and that is kind of like the distinctions: the tall head and the gross teeth.
Now, I did see a side-by-side picture of what it looked like in animation, and I agree. Like the shape of his head is decidedly different, and never has Star Wars decided that like the budget wasn't worth it to make a character's head look the right shape. And so I just want to think that there's some other reason for this. I don't think it's necessarily story. And it was like a pretty clear framing of his head in a couple of different shots in this trailer. And so it's not like it was obscured and we just didn't get a good look. But I don't know, maybe there's more to it, or maybe they're able to make it work. But
people are just saying that they want this can allow them to make Powans a little bit more, like you can make them more diverse looking. I guess you don't necessarily need to have them all have their heads be super tall in that same way, the same way you have like a lot of Wookiee variants. But and like plenty of like the Aqualish, for example, is a species that literally has like 3 distinct subspecies because the costumes were never that consistent. So it's one of those things that you can find some consistency within Star Wars. It's just weird that we have gained familiarity with his depiction aligning pretty perfectly between animation and live action, and this being the second Powan.
Now, you did mention you mentioned a parallel with Cad Bane. Interestingly, this is the second time in like a month Star Wars has shown a villainous character in some kind of revealing way that the masses will not recognize, and not necessarily to anybody's detriment in particular in a trailer, but like I didn't know. I know the phrase the Grand Inquisitor because I talk to you all the time. I couldn't have known from watching this that it was the Grand Inquisitor. And in fact, the first time he speaks, I'm asking myself if it's Palpatine. And I'm not disappointed that there's no Palpatine in this trailer. I'm kind of at the point now where I will be a little disappointed if he's nowhere in the series, but I wouldn't want him in the trailer, and so it's totally fine. But I had to ask myself, is that Palpatine's voice when I first heard it?
When I first heard it, immediately thought it was Rupert Friend as the Grand Inquisitor because I had heard that he was going to be playing the Grand Inquisitor. And so it made a ton of sense there. But it was something where I for a second thought Palpatine was just like, and it's something that crosses your mind, and then until like 1 second later they pass and they show his face, and it is a bit of a reveal, but it also is revealing someone who's clearly the menacing villain, the same way that Kylo Ren was revealed in the trailer for The Force Awakens. You do it in a revealing way to show that this is the baddie. And here's kind of another example. Moses Ingram. She was like, they do a lot of cool revealing shots there. This is a brand new character.
She's everywhere in this trailer. She's all over the place.
Yeah, she is clearly going to be the primary Inquisitor working on Obi-Wan's case. And I think that's even mentioned that she is indeed the main antagonist for
she's
at
like
least
the Captain Ahab, like who's really taken a special interest in this particular manhunt. And that's what the trailer establishes, is that they're rounding up everybody who maybe doesn't align with the Emperor, but more importantly, there's a real hunt out for Obi-Wan. And of course we can imagine why.
Yes, and this character has been described as very ambitious. And so the only thing that can make me think is that maybe she wants the role of Grand Inquisitor. And that in her mind, if I can catch and kill Obi-Wan, Vader will give me the role of Grand Inquisitor. Or maybe Vader will take me on as his personal Padawan or something. And there's some form of linkage there where I'm sure she'll fail and Obi-Wan will, it might harken to similar what happens in Fallen Order, where an Inquisitor fails Vader and Vader just slaughters the Inquisitor. But that could happen in this as well. But there are other Inquisitors in this. There's Reva, which is the Moses Ingram character. That normally the Inquisitors are named numbered brother or numbered sister, and then the Grand Inquisitor. But Reva is apparently Moses Ingram's character. There is another Inquisitor who's like a Thalothian or maybe an Iktachi or a new species, maybe. It's female. And I think I don't remember the actress's name, but I think we do know who it is. That's also, I think, a new character. She might be the fourth sister. I think it's a new character though as well. And then there's the fifth brother. And the fifth brother's also in Rebels, and that's Sung Kang. And that's what you were kind of pointing at with the weird shaped head, which is like a helmet of sorts. But yes, he's also in it, and he looked very menacing and excellent. They're really doing a great job of bringing at least the uniforms and the armor to life. And also, I mean, we keep talking about the Inquisitors. I can kind of consistently ramble into Fortress Inquisitorius. And so that would be where they have their little boardroom meeting, which is an underwater fortress. And so that is that's awesome.
The big black structure in the sea. Okay, then I guess we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, because that's in the first 10 seconds of the trailer. Why don't we talk about
let's go through the trailer.
Let's talk about what happens. It opens up on a desert plain, unsurprisingly. There's a figure on the horizon. You can assume who that is. He's riding, how do we pronounce this creature? A Neope?
An Eope.
An Eope, which is like a camel on Tatooine, which we've seen these before.
Yep.
Then we fade to a closer up shot, and we can see indeed that is Obi-Wan Kenobi, looking a little bit older. And in fact, he's about 10 years older than the events of Revenge of the Sith, I think. But he still looks gorgeous, honestly. He's got a lot of degrading to do between here and Alec Guinness. And he's now walking that Eope through a quiet town street. It's not necessarily like a bustling marketplace like we've often seen on Tatooine. And so how do you feel about the timeline? I mean, I heard it's 10 years, but do you feel like this is just him arriving at Tatooine, or he's just kind of going about his day?
No, I think what they're doing here is I think it is very much going to be that 10-year point. I think that it's going to show that he lives a certain way up to a certain point, and we're going to get um potentially, we're going to give Obi-Wan some evolution by giving him some closure in this series, likely. And
Right.
so he's potentially living more like a hermit than ever at this point. And someone, I think it was, I was watching the little 9-minute Star Wars Explained summary of this as well, and mentioned that he might even be living in the cave that we see him in later on. And so he might not even have his hut at this point. He seems, but his appearance, it does seem like this is 10 years later. He's got the Alec Guinness beard, but his hair is transitioning between Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon a little bit. He's got some Qui-Gon-ness to his hair. And so it kind of works for me, the vibe they're going for. He's gonna lose all that hair in those next 10 years, but they're showing the transition through kind of his beard. It makes him look a little bit more gaunt, shows that he's weathered a little bit more, and so that looks really good.
I mean, the character Obi-Wan is how I learned the word hermit. Like, I'm sure that's the first time
Absolutely.
I ever heard the word hermit, but I actually interpreted this trailer the opposite. I kind of thought, okay, maybe he hasn't fully transitioned to not seeing anybody yet. Like, because he appears to be walking through town. And the next shot we get is of him. I mean, there's this crowd of people like walking past him, and he appears to be like working on a conveyor belt or on like some kind of assembly line. And I don't know if he like is an odd job man on Tatooine for a period.
Maybe. I actually didn't think of it that way. I thought he was just like fixing something the way that Rey does in like the beginning of The Force Awakens, and she's just like cleaning up one of her parts before she sells it or something. Okay. I kind of thought he was like maybe like cleaning a carcass or something, or like before he sells off something that he hunted, maybe. But maybe you're right. Maybe he is on a conveyor belt. You can't really tell from the shot.
I'll just say that there appear to be some like Great Depression images in this trailer, and that like it harkens to a time where everybody's poor and like newly operating and adjusting to this existence of extreme oppression, and where they have to like line up for food and they have to line up for work. And I kind of wondered if like we're going to experience a sort of like class dichotomy in this show, or not even really a dichotomy. We're going to see this new version of sad Tatooine as it adjusts, and Obi-Wan too.
Yeah, I think there's going to be I think it's going to be very sad. I think it's going to be very depressing, and Tatooine is going to be, well, I mean, if you've got the Empire showing up, that's oppressing and already a pretty oppressed place, and so it's not going to be very uplifting circumstances. It looks like, my guess is the first episode is going to be very dreary, or at least first half will be very mundane. There'll be some form of inciting incident that occurs towards the end, I'm sure, but it will want to establish the calmness and the kind of the monotony. But it's interesting, like you said, like Great Depression era, and it literally starts off, the fight is done, we lost. And that's not what happened with the war and like the Great Depression in that regard. But the world loses economically, certainly at that point, and the fight is done at that point. But it's such a great.
The Clone Wars are over too, and like,
well, that's the literal one. It's absolutely, it's a great line to kick it off.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We cut back to him next to the Yopi. He's riding slowly off into the desert again. And then, oh yes, then we see him in this cave that you alluded to. And this is really the most striking thing.
Not the cave I was referring to. This is kind of his cave watch point. We're watching Luke.
Little canyon, and he's sitting in the mouth of this cave. And we cut to the POV of this. It's like the lens of some digital binoculars, which we've seen before. He's looking out at the Lars homestead, and we see Owen and Beru, and then indeed he zooms in on a boy, I guess a 10-year-old boy in flight goggles, straddling the eave of the house and pretending he's a pilot, and he's dressed just like little Annie. The glasses are a part of that too. I mean, there's just no right away you're seeing the fantasies and the imagination of little boy Luke Skywalker. And I was a little surprised they gave that one in the trailer.
Yeah, always looking off to the horizon.
Right.
Yeah, he looks just like Anakin. And you have the Obi-Wan voiceover that says "Stay hidden," and it's so serious. It shows that he cares so much about his job, and that is very specifically like he is just watching over Luke. And the whole point is just let him grow up and become the new hope. And then we get the chords of Duel of the Fates.
Duel of the Fates. I mean, that was trending on Twitter like immediately after. Did you have any expectation? I mean, I guess we kind of had it hinted to us recently that they wanted to reprise this song in some way. And I guess through Obi-Wan, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Battle of the Heroes is in here a little bit, which is, of course, the main one that I wanted to hear. And I've also heard some other people they pointed out a few other themes, like Anakin's dark deeds is, I think, the last one. And it's going to be a lot of John Williams reprised variations and themes throughout this, and it's going to be because it's so Skywalker centric, and that's just it's so exciting. And Duel of the Fates, it is about the fate of Anakin that Maul and Qui-Gon are dueling over in Dave Filoni's eloquent speech on the the gallery that he talks about for The Mandalorian. This will be Obi-Wan and Anakin dueling over the fate of Luke.
Right. Yeah.
And so that right there is going to bring that meaning full circle. And that's
although
really
not
cool.
really, because Anakin will not learn in this series that his son is alive.
Maul didn't know what he was a tool for either, though. But if he wins, he Obi-Wan is no longer there to protect Luke, and he's no longer there to bring Luke on the journey. And so ultimately, Luke dies with his aunt and uncle when the stormtroopers come and set fire to the homestead.
It'll be a little interesting to see if we get any more context for the relationship had between old Ben and Luke. Like, it's pretty clear that they don't have like an uncle nephew kind of thing, but like they probably know each other and have met a handful of times. And like maybe they started to have a relationship, and at some point Uncle Owen was like, okay, you're not coming around here anymore. You bring nothing but trouble. Like it seems very likely that they haven't spoken in an especially long time when they eventually catch up in A New Hope, but they'll probably interact at least minimally in this series.
I think we're going to get maybe their first meeting. I think we're maybe going to get an instance where you get a little young Luke saying, "Who are you?" And in the end of the scene, Owen comes and pulls Luke away and tells off Obi-Wan and tells him to go away or something. And it's because this will occur after Obi-Wan starts some trouble in town, or after the Inquisitors arrive and Owen is getting extra scared or something. And so I think that would make a lot of sense for us to get that maybe first meeting where Luke, because clearly Obi-Wan's watching from a distance, and so he is not familiar enough to be coming around to check on Luke. And so it would be cool to see their first meeting, I think.
Is there a canonical explanation for why he calls himself Ben, or is that going to be incorporated into this show? Like, it seems so random that he's not named Obi-Wan.
I think there's going to be an Imperial officer that asks him who his people are, and he's going to just have to say, I don't know. You're going to have to give me a name here. I don't have an alias. So, and he's going to see something that looks like a B in the room, and something that looks like an E, and then something that looks like an N. And Ben is my name. No, it's not going to be
wearing
anything.
A Solo t-shirt while you do this bit.
I know I am. And also, I didn't hate that as much as most people. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it as much as most people.
Sure.
I think that would be
to answer my question. No, there's no canonical backstory for Ben.
That is the answer to your question. However, I never really thought about the fact that we could get that in this. And I think that dissimilar to getting the name for Solo, I think that makes a lot of sense. We kind of want to know that one now. I mean, it's obvious that he needs an alias.
Yes.
But actually, under those circumstances, then he'll probably already be going by Ben at this point.
It's not a great alias. He goes by Ben Kenobi.
No, it's not a good alias. That's a really good point. Maybe we'll find out that Kenobi is like Antilles, and it's one of the most common last names in the galaxy far, far away. And everybody's named either like, yeah, I would hate that too. But I don't know. That is a great point. It is a terrible alias, and the whole plan of hiding on Tatooine with the last name Kenobi. We're gonna see how that one makes more sense, or maybe we'll just have to look past it.
So we hear Duel of the Fates, and it's very exciting, and we see the Lucasfilm logo, and some Tatooine sand kind of washes it away, and then we cut to an overhead of this stark black starfighter flying over open water towards, as you alluded to before, this Inquisitorium. Is that what it's called? This is the base for where all Palpatine's minions hang out?
Yeah, so the planet is Nur. It's near Mustafar, and this is Fortress Inquisitorius, and so it's where all the Vader's minions, his Jedi-killing minions, go and train. And I think there's a prison here as well, and probably where they take a lot of Jedi. It wouldn't surprise me that they would capture and maybe torture to find information on other Jedi. But this is also the main location of the final sequence during Jedi Fallen Order, the video game.
Okay.
And so this is just an awesome Star Warsy scape. It is across, like, it gives you vibes of the Emperor's throne room. It gives you vibes of Vader's castle, but it takes place in a water planet as opposed to a lava planet. So it is going to be a very, very good setting. And I would love to see the fight between Obi-Wan and Vader occur here. I'd have no issue with that. I think that could be really, really cool.
Well, and something this trailer establishes in just like 100 seconds is that you're not going to feel confined to Tatooine the way you did in the Book of Boba Fett, which like at times started to feel like, geez, get me off of this dusty planet. Star Wars is about like spatial exploration. And so obviously we're going to spend a lot of time on Tatooine, and that's important, but we're also going to have this ocean planet. And I'm pretty sure we know that Vader's castle is going to appear. And so we'll have some Mustafar. And also we're going to get to this shortly, but like there's some kind of city planet that looks like Tokyo and maybe is Coruscant is heavily featured in this trailer.
It's not Coruscant. I forgot to write it down. I forget the name of it. It starts with a D. It's like Dioba or something, or but it is a new planet. Okay. This city one that you're referring to.
So as we're flying into the Inquisitorium, we hear another voiceover, different voice. We learn very shortly after it is the voice of the Grand Inquisitor. He's kind of speaking a sort of manifesto as if it's a lesson for his underlings to take in. He says the key to hunting Jedi is patience. And then we get a quick shot of him. He appears to be like intimidating a Tatooine commoner. And then we come back to Obi-Wan again. One thing I'll say about this trailer is that it's like aggressively edited. Like it's a little drug addled in its constant cutting back and forth between stuff, and sometimes it feels like they're just filling in gaps.
I think that's a teaser thing, but yeah, a good point on it. Feels like they're filling in gaps with, I guess, kind of some of the shots at the start, and I think it's trying to set setting tone. But even like this shot right here, it looks like it's just Obi-Wan on like a Tatooine bus,
like a transport. He's on like a canvas transport, but again, it's kind of feels like Great Depression stuff. He's just like a part of this silent crowd of really sad people, and he is not there as their associate. He just got on for a chair.
Well, let's finish reading off what the Inquisitor says, and then we can do the scenes. The Jedi cannot help what they are. Their compassion leaves a trail. The Jedi code is like an itch. He cannot help it.
So interesting, because what I take from that, on the one hand, he's talking about Jedi like they're simple and pests, which is very sensible for what we know of this guy. On the other hand, he seems to be talking about them with a certain degree of empathy. Like especially he cannot help it.
He was one.
Okay. Well, and so I guess he can speak from a position of authority. But he wants to hunt them and he wants them dead. And on the other hand, he like the fact that they cannot help it. Like that really, that speaks a little bit to his understanding of this is not vicious, this rivalry. This is just business. And I find that to be a really interesting dynamic because so many of these villains seethe with personal hatred. And maybe this guy doesn't. He's just doing his job.
He kind of doesn't. He lacks heart and like emotion, but at the same time, he doesn't have necessarily, it doesn't feel like he hates the Jedi, and more like he hates that they make his job hard.
Sure.
But I don't necessarily see a vendetta the same way that you would see someone who, like I mentioned before, like Barriss Offee, who I kind of expected to be an Inquisitor, and is not any of these Inquisitors. And I don't think they're going to add another one. They've already shown us 4, and I would imagine she's not in this show. But that's somebody who, like, okay, I kind of see how why you hate the Jedi. But the Grand Inquisitor was a temple guard as well, so he was a cog in the machine, and so maybe that's it's certainly why he's studied and why he's very equipped to catch a Jedi is because he was one, and was one who was very versed in protection and combat. And so that's what a lot of the Inquisitors are. It'll be interesting to see if we get kind of backstory on more of the other ones. We likely will on Reva, but I wonder about the other 2.
What do you glean from the phrase, their compassion leaves a trail?
Well, I think that Obi-Wan has done something, and they've found him on Tatooine. And this is also, like, I'm not the only one to speculate this, but I think what's likely going to happen is that's why he leaves, and that he's going to see it as like, okay, maybe they'll just think I was just on Tatooine for a moment. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll they won't even realize how close they're getting to maybe catching Luke, and they'll be like, okay, Obi-Wan, like they know that if I know I've left some breadcrumbs here, I need to go leave breadcrumbs everywhere. I need to go leave them like on as many different planets with a lot of people and make noise where I can be seen, so that, okay, he's no longer on Tatooine. We can leave Tatooine. We can leave Luke alone.
Yeah, and also
that would make sense.
In any of the time that we've spent with Jedi as fans, they've left a trail of compassion too, because everywhere they go, they find friends and thereby create more vulnerabilities of themselves. And so, like, the purest example of that is the existence of Luke and Leia, which they're the calcification, the embodiment of a trail of compassion, because a Jedi could not help. He could not control his heart. And so I think it means something broad, but it also like applies very specifically to the fact that Obi-Wan is here trying to watch over a trail of compassion.
That's really interesting, the way that you talk about, like, how you can trail that back to, like, even Qui-Gon taking Obi-Wan on as an apprentice.
And certainly Anakin taking him on as an apprentice.
Oh, absolutely. But I just meant, like, even going, like, you can keep going back. And I'm like, I'm surprised I haven't finished Dooku Jedi Lost yet. I only have gotten a little bit into it, but I have to get back to that. But I want to know more about, like, for example, Dooku's relationship with Qui-Gon, and kind of see, like, oh, where does the compassion stop? Because you get a Sith Lord as your master.
Right. So we got another shot of Moses Ingram. Reva, is that her name? She's in like an Imperial garb, and she's in an ominous boardroom. There's 2 other officers there. She's the one standing. Then we cut back to her on Tatooine. She's on the streets. Somebody appears to have been hanged. Like, they might be doing like some brutal executions of people who aren't cooperating. She's threatening commoners. She's got a weapon. We see Owen Lars there too. So, like, he's on the front lines of some of this brutality. And this might be where he goes to Obi-Wan and says, like, you're a magnet, my friend. Do not come around my family.
That's what I think as well. And boy, do they make him look like
Yeah, I
Phil
know.
Brown. That is
Excellent.
amazing. It is so good. And like the profile, the front on, it is Owen Lars. And so I think somebody mentioned that Deborah Chow was extremely thankful to George Lucas for casting Joel Edgerton all
Turned
those
out to
years
be
ago.
a really, really good casting. Then we cut back to another shot of Reva. Like I said, she's all over this thing. They're really going to make her into a proper character, which I'm excited for, because we loved her in The Queen's Gambit. Now she's on top of like a city building on this new city planet we've never heard of before, and it's nighttime. There's lots of like neon, and she's lurking. I think at one point we actually see Obi-Wan on this planet, right? Like they're lining up people on all the planets, and he's there wearing a hood.
Yes, not quite on that shot, but we do see it a couple shots later, and there's a droid that is called Ned. It's got Ned written on him, and so people are speculating that's probably going to be either Benny Safdie, Kumail Nanjiani. Some people said maybe O'Shea Jackson Jr. I don't think so. I'm gonna guess.
I forgot about.
I'm gonna think Benny Safdie is my guess.
I totally forgot about like all three of those people not being in this trailer. And again, it's good that they held some chips back.
Yeah, absolutely. But what they do is then they shoot to the Inquisitor ship landing, and Indira Varma dressed as an Imperial getting off. And then they go to the lineup where Obi-Wan's kind of walking in the background with his hood on, and they're lining people up and looking them down. So clearly this is Obi-Wan on the run and then chasing him. We see it's Tatooine, and it's on this planet, which is bugging me that I don't have the name of the planet.
Reva
and
like
it looks
runs
like
up this like beam, this city beam. There's clearly like a foot chase.
Yeah, and there's like a rooftop chase, and it looks like the Grand Inquisitor's there. He does his lightsaber spin thing, which is that's a very cool thing. The Inquisitor lightsabers, they kind of have like this pivot on them that allows them to rotate and turn into like just spinning blades.
They're really cool.
But
where is he? So he's clear he's looking specifically for Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and so that's something that it looks like a lot of them are on the chase. And then we cut to the fifth brother.
Yeah, and then pretty soon after, I think we see Reva with a red lightsaber.
Well, we have the fifth brother walking through the streets. He's leading a crew, and then we have Reva whipping out her red lightsaber on Tatooine, which looks to be in front of Owen Lars.
Oh, I didn't get that. I just figured it was just another Tatooine person, but okay.
It could be, but it kind of looks like Owen Lars a little bit.
Then there's a really curious shot that only lasts for a second, and I don't know what we can glean from it, but it's a black glove in a dark space touching a brick wall with some markings on it. And I don't know, are you able to get anything from what those markings are, or who you think that hand belongs to?
I think it's Reva. I think it's just like the Inquisitor outfit, and with like kind of that shoulder thing that you can kind of see. And so I think it's Reva. And it looks like maybe it's following like Obi-Wan, or maybe following like a Jedi outpost of sorts. Apparently they're Jedi symbols. I heard that somewhere. And so that would make sense if maybe this is like maybe the opening shots. Maybe the entire series opens up with you get like Reva chasing down some Jedi and killing that Jedi or something, just to kind of show what an Inquisitor does. Or maybe this is a location that Obi-Wan was meeting somebody at, and she's just hot on the trail and is like kind of trying to glean what she can from it, and probably is a former Jedi herself, so maybe she's able to learn a lot from it. So this one, I think, just further emphasizing that it is going to be a hot chase amongst our characters. And then you get an alleyway sequence of somebody with a blaster and Reva as well. And is that going to be Obi-Wan? Is that somebody else? Who is it?
Going to be another shootout of sorts, and then it quickly cuts to what looks like a shoot, like a gunfight, I guess, on a rooftop. I think there's like somebody's getting sniped, right?
Yes. There is kind of some form, like an additional gunfight on the rooftop, and then there's like a big swarm of birds.
Really interesting. Like they just look like pigeons. They do not look like Star Wars birds, but there's like a puff.
They're green.
Oh, okay, some green birds. They fly up from a vent on a roof. And then we get a close up of Obi-Wan's face. He's looking down, and then he looks off to the side, and we see the show title, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Some sand brushes over it as we hear the breathing of Darth Vader, which makes a lot of sense. I'm not surprised that that's how they decided to cameo him in the trailer, because you don't want to give too much.
No, you don't. And that makes complete sense. It's just that small amount of a taste to remind people, if you didn't know, he's going to be in it. And I think there was enough in this that is going to really get everybody interested, because if you thought you knew Obi-Wan because you've seen the movies, well, then there's a whole lot of stuff in this that is interesting you beyond what Obi-Wan is, because you're like, oh, okay, well, what's Obi-Wan's story? And also, what is all this other cool new stuff? If you just love all of the ins and outs of Star Wars, you love the way that this is weaving together. And if you've been kind of passionately like kind of loving the prequels and the original trilogy, I really think this is going to be maybe the best merge of them ever. So you not having seen Obi-Wan for so long in live action is going to be something pretty damn special. Now, there was one scene that when playing it through, I actually, as I was scrubbing through, I didn't see it the second time. It was Obi-Wan in a cave. Maybe that did happen earlier when I didn't see that at the beginning, but there is a sequence where he's in a cave very quickly, and it's like kind of a bluish sort of light around him, and he's got like what looks like a sleeping bag sort of situation. So I don't know whether if he is living in a cave, but also I heard this elsewhere, and which emphasizes that I'm not the only one who felt this. Got real Mortis vibes. Remember when he's in the cave and it's kind of bluish vibes, and that's when Qui-Gon comes to him on Mortis?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, maybe this is going to be when he communes with Qui-Gon, and maybe that's the reason why it's kind of like a blue glow in there, is because Qui-Gon is in there, and that explains as to why.
Like we had that confirmed, by the way. Do we know whether or not? Like, I know we both highly suspect Liam Neeson, but has that been confirmed?
Has not been confirmed. It has been heavily rumored recently, though.
Yeah.
So that, along with, or maybe the image is only from, maybe it's only a still of him in the cave. Maybe that's the reason.
Yeah, there were a couple of stills that came out this morning. I'm not sure. I think I know what one you're talking about. I don't think it's in the trailer.
Yeah, that's right, because there are a couple stills that aren't in the trailer, and they're of Obi-Wan feeding his Yopi, of him when he's like spying around a corner. And then just a couple other. Oh, and then one of Owen and Riva facing face to face.
It does make sense, I think, if he has to come to Tatooine and just live in a cave for a few years, because this is when those Inquisitors are like really like digging around. By the time of A New Hope, I don't know what the state of the Inquisition is, but likely the trail has cooled and they're not tearing apart Tatooine all the time. And so he feels safe enough to like build himself a little house. But like at the time of this series, maybe he has to like constantly be on the move, on his toes. Maybe he really can't even plant his flag in the same spot for too long.
That would be interesting.
I love a fugitive show. That's such a cool idea for Obi-Wan.
Well, that seems to be what it's going to be. Yeah. And like whether or not it's that on Tatooine, whether or not he's been going through this for 10 years, or whether or not this is going to be kind of a short-lived, this is the arc of the show where it's going to be him on the move. But you're right. I mean, that is the style that they're going for. And I'm completely here for it. It seems like it's going to be one of those shows that is going to be miserable every time the episode ends, because you're just going to want to see the next 30 seconds.
Something I saw is that the shot of Luke sitting on top of the house and pretending he's flying a starfighter lifts right from a comic where like a little boy, it's an Obi-Wan comic where like little boy Luke is pretending he's a pilot on the Lars farm. And I wondered how much of that existing legend stuff is going to creep into the show. And I remembered this book, this novel Kenobi by John Jackson Miller, which has a following. People like it, and obviously they have their own story to tell, but I wonder if there will be anything recognizable from people who love this book in the series. Because I read the opening crawl just before we started recording, and like it does imply that the crux of this book is Obi-Wan having to keep a close eye on Luke, not just,
Mm.
you know, return to his old Anakin situation. I don't think there's any kind of Darth Vader situation in this novel.
No, I believe the main crux of that is about another Jedi who wants to kill Luke because he thinks that it will bring attention to Tatooine. And like it's another Jedi who's also been hiding on Tatooine. I think that's the point.
The novel
I haven't
opens
read
with
the book.
It opens with the quote, "Until the time is right, disappear we will," which is a great way to start the Obi-Wan story, I think.
Yeah, that is I wonder if we're going to have, I think we'll definitely have some callbacks to that specific meeting, whether it's through Bail Organa appearing in the show or Yoda appearing in the show. What do you think the odds are Yoda appears?
Anytime I say
Or voice?
anytime I say that odds are low, it happens immediately. So I don't even know how to interact with that prediction. I do like the idea of considering Bail Organa. Like I would love a moment where, you know, I don't know, maybe Bail Organa and Leia come to Tatooine for a sec, and Leia and Luke have no idea how close they in fact were at one point.
That'd be cool.
I don't mean having met each other. I just mean like they were like 300 yards away from each other for like a split second, and like it would just kind of be, because now we know we're getting Kid Luke. Maybe we'll get to see Kid Leia, and that would be exciting.
Yeah, well, there was the rumor long ago that they were casting for both of them.
Yeah.
And so I think the odds are pretty good. And if we get Kid Leia, then we're going to get Bail Organa. So I think the odds are actually pretty good that we'll get them. And if we get Bail Organa and we'll probably get Qui-Gon, probably get, if we get Yoda. I mean, this is quite the cast that we're going to have when it's all said and done. When they showed the cast early on, they were probably laughing to themselves, thinking, they don't even know. We've got a little young Luke, we've got a little young Leia, we've got Jimmy Smits coming back, we've got Frank Oz. They were probably thinking all these people that they had up their sleeve. And we don't know about any of those, like Liam Neeson. We don't know about any of them, but it'd be cool if they had them up their sleeve.
Well, I know that Hayden is set to appear in the Ahsoka show, but in a way, I kind of think that not The Rise of Skywalker, that this show, Obi-Wan Kenobi, of all things, is kind of serving as a quasi grand finale for the Skywalker saga. And so I think smartly, they're like, no, let's play our best hand. Let's leave nothing on the table. And
I agree.
Yeah, when you look at it that way, especially since it's Obi-Wan and it's a story that's going to focus again on the principles of the Jedi here in this era, and we're going to revolve around a couple Skywalkers. Yes, let's bring in Yoda. We're going to require the wisdom of Yoda. We just will.
Yeah, at some point in time. Qui-Gon can provide a lot of that wisdom, but it would be nice. They have such a great relationship too.
Well, and we see Force Ghost Ben interacting with Yoda on Dagobah. So I realize that's kind of a different plane, but like they don't seem to require any reunion when they do that. And so like maybe there's an insinuation there that they have a dialogue, the two of them.
Yeah, Yoda is able to commune in very powerful ways. I forget, I have to rewatch how he communes with Ezra in Rebels, because he doesn't leave Dagobah and he communicates with Ezra somehow. So
any other thoughts on this trailer? Anything else jump out at you?
Nothing else really stands out. Just I've watched it I don't know, 5 or 6 times in a row right before we put this on, and it's just, yeah, it really is so exciting. And there's having the shape of the Inquisitor's head be the thing that people are like, that's annoying, but everybody else universally being so excited, it's going to be quite the bang come May.
We didn't talk about the words that were on the screen between the final
no.
of the trailer, which is beautifully phrased: between darkness and defeat, hope survives. So this kind of lends itself even more to what I just said about how this being the real finale for the Skywalker saga. We're talking about hope again.
A new hope, and how Obi-Wan is going to lose all hope in Anakin, but will believe that Luke is the chosen one by the end of the series.
Anything else in the regular Star Wars news you want to hit on?
Not a ton, obviously. The tickets are back on sale soon for Celebration, and so they did a cool poster, and Darth Maul is featured pretty prominently in it. And that could just be because he's badass, but there's been a lot of rumor lately that Darth Maul is indeed going to be getting his own TV show, his animated show, and I think that would be awesome.
Yeah,
and that would make sense as to it's a Crimson Dawn show. We talked about this a long time ago with Paul Bettany doing the voice of Dryden Boss, and Kira potentially being in it, or but it being a Maul show, and Maul having his best arena be animation, it seems to make a lot of sense. So that is kind of it on the news side. Everything has been all focused on Obi-Wan and the Entertainment Weekly, and then the trailer that came beyond that, and some Andor stuff, just kind of like names of characters and kind of things, but nothing of significance.
Okay. Want to wish a happy birthday on Wednesday, March 9th to Oscar Isaac, and a week later, Wednesday, March 16th, Alan Tudyk. A happy birthday to both of those fantastic guys. If you have any thoughts on the Obi-Wan teaser trailer, anything that we neglected, or if you have any predictions based on what you saw, would love to hear your thoughts. You can email recorder66podcast@gmail.com or tweet at recorder66. Please rate and review on your preferred podcast app so we can be found by other Star Wars fans who listen to podcasts. And if you're joining us on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. And until we are together again,
may the Force be with you.